Welcome back. We're here with another episode of the Dossier Project, and we have been discussing different character traits of making a DOS woman. The last character trait that we discussed was character, and today we're going to discuss ownership or responsibility. And for most of you, you probably recognize that we're wearing the same outfits, but we've changed our hair. We're going to own that. So we're doing two videos back to back, but you're not supposed to know. So, so today we're going to explore ownership and responsibility and share a few examples of what it's been like through DOS and then maybe even after DOS. So if you do like our content, if you've been enjoying our content, please like it. If you think it may help someone else or they may get benefit from it, please do share it. And if you'd like to hear more, please subscribe. And other than that, let's dig in. So ladies, what is ownership or responsibility to you?
Responsibility. It's like such a, like, I'm sorry, but responsibility, the word is always like, it's bittersweet. I think like there's such a, like, oh, I don't want any responsibility. And like, it feels like, oh my God, it's intense and it's heavy and I don't want it. And then there's something that's very goody and yummy in it as well. Like when I have responsibility it feels really good. Anyway, so that's just the visceral kind of feeling I have around the word. But to me, it's essentially your participation in anything, or more to the point, you recognizing your participation in anything. Because I think in any given circumstance, in any given moment, in any given interaction, I participate in some way. I have effects. There's a lot of things participating. There's a lot of things happening, but I definitely somehow am participating in any given situation. And either I recognize it and I can see it, or I don't. And to me, that's the responsibility. I think we all have it. It's always there. Like we're always participating. We're always contributing. It's whether we own it, right? That's where the ownership comes in. We can own it and say, yep, I participate here and here and here, and I'm responsible for this and this and this, and this is, how I'm going to bring myself. Or you avoid it and don't see it and kind of go more into the victim blamey kind of, no, it wasn't me. I didn't, I'm not responsible. It was him, her, or whatever. So I think it's just a like recognition of your participation in any circumstance. So it's also like a recognition of your potence, what you can and can't do, what you're capable of, what you can't. Yeah. So like, for example, if you're, like late to work or to a meeting, either you blame the traffic for it, you blame the weather for it, you blame the dog for it, whatever it is, right? And it's like you didn't participate, it's not your fault. Or it's like, oh, I got myself late to work because I didn't consider this and that. I didn't go early enough. I didn't leave room for error, blah, blah, blah. So you start to take responsibility, ownership of how you're creating your life and your circumstances to a certain extent.
I don't know that we did this intentionally when we first chose this word, but we weren't sure which trait to put as the character trait, responsibility, and we chose ownership. And I think, as you're talking, Sahajo, I realized there is a distinction for me, and I think it's exactly that, the recognition that you are participating, because responsibility always exists, whether we see it or not. We have effects in the world, we exist, and our mere existence has effects on other people or other situations. But whether or not we recognize those effects or that responsibility, I think speaks to ownership. Do we own that? Do we see it? Do we recognize it? Do we seek to recognize it? One of the examples that came up for me when you were talking has to do with the readiness drills. When there's a specific curriculum that we had, or I participated in, outside of DOS, before DOS was ever a thing. And there were just readiness drills where we would respond to a signal that came in at 3 o'clock every day. And we had a system set up so that if we didn't respond, we would look at how we failed. How did we participate in that failure? And man, the recognition of my participation, the recognition or the ownership of my failures. I remember, I've been doing this since 2014 now. So I look back and I don't know if any of you have had this responsibility, but how many of you had like a technological failure and you were like, this was not my fault. I was there, I was ready, I was set up, I put the R in the stupid thing, the chat, I was ready. I sent it, I pushed the button, I saw the thing come through. It's not my fault, right?
The
And
Wi-Fi on the airplane wasn't working.
exactly. This, how could this possibly be my fault, But an incredible system. It just continues to push you to say, okay, well, how did you participate? How did you participate? So, okay, I didn't consider the possibilities of technological failures. I didn't consider what it would be to be on a plane and have to try to work this out. I could have went dark. I could have, decided that I wasn't available for the drill that day. There are many other ways in which I made choices that participated in this effect. And the amount of responsibility or potency, as you mentioned, Sahajo, goes up tremendously when you start to seek out your own responsibility and stop blaming other things. Feels so good to blame.
You said exactly the thing I think what I thought of when Sahaja was speaking, the recognition and also the choice of that. And if what people I think confuse it for is, say, responsibility, right? They think, oh, responsibility bad, and they confuse it with a lot of blame. And it could be against things, like usually external things or people, oh my, and it could be, and it's so prevalent that we don't even recognize it, I think. And, it's like things that, even something that's even to do with ourselves, like, oh, I didn't do it because I got a headache, like my health or things like that. So I think what ownership to me means really owning everything in your life, taking 100% responsibility for everything, all your choices, your body, your health, even in a weird way. I mean, some people, take with health, they're like, oh, it's my genetics, what so forth. But I would even probably maybe even, I don't know, challenge that. Just because you have the genes doesn't mean that it's 100% you're going to be unhealthy, and the environment does have effects, and the environment is most greatly affected probably by your choices to do things or not do things. So
heard someone say this and I was like, oh, they said something like, if it's in your life, that means you're responsible. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Yeah. Like if it happened to you, right? And I say quote unquote, because like there's a lot of things that, I mean, yeah, that feel like they happen to us, but at the same time, if we really dig into it, like we are always responsible for even being, at that place, at that time, having the relationship with that person, having that interaction, like we are there. So when they said that, I was like, oh my goodness, they're right. If it's in my life, there's no way that I'm not responsible. And there's people that even take it further to say, like, even things that you don't even know about because of your mere existence. This touches a little bit into, like, I don't know, maybe probably like quantum physics or something along the lines of like the butterfly effect, where like the mere fact that you're existing here and that you're walking this earth, it is creating effects that you don't even know. We don't even understand. So I agree with Sahaja, the part of ownership, it is for me, because what I wrote is like, ownership to me, it means like, this is my doing, right? Like this is my thing and I take ownership. Like I take it as I am responsible. I take the consequences, whether good or bad, because we love good consequences. I don't know, you guys, I love good consequences, like when I'm responsible and then I did things right, and then everybody's like, oh, it's, or I see, in my job, like I see the effect of my job and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is working the way I thought. I love those consequences. The bad consequences, where someone wasn't really learning, or someone wasn't really, that, or even with my children, I don't like the consequences that I don't like. That doesn't mean that I'm not responsible. So yes, I think that it's lovely that we picked ownership, because it is different. I always thought they were the same thing, and as we're talking, I was like, oh right, no, they're not. It's a choice. Responsibility is
Yeah.
not a choice necessarily.
Like a distinction as well, because Danielle, you were talking about before, like something about, it's my fault, or like it's their fault, like that coming in the way of ownership. And I think that's a bit easy and big confusion is fault, like whose fault is it, or like it's bad or it's wrong or something. And then I think we so we avoid the responsibility because we don't want to have the fault. And so I think in it's like there is no fault per se. There's situations, there's reality, right? There's certain things that happened. You had a meeting at a certain time and you weren't there for the meeting. And it's not good or bad, it's how it is. And so I think we tend to then go into the fault and like justify it and make it right or wrong or bad, like excuse it and stuff. And it's like that gets in the way of the responsibility because either you just see why you're late and how you're late and what the effects are and like what can I do to fix that, make sure I don't, how can I learn from it, and how do I, so you can like take any event and grow with it and make it better, or you can use it to kind of get more scared or like retrieve or something like that, and be more of a victim and be more blamey and like, oh my God, it's, the world is happening to me and I can't do anything, kind of a thing, rather than like, oh, and like, I'm going to learn from this now. Like, these are the effects and I'm going to fix what I can and see how it is. But this is, and this is how I got myself there. And like, it's always an opportunity to learn and grow as well, which is great. And like, I'm going to learn from this now. Like, these are the effects and I'm going to fix what I can and see how it is. But this is, and this is how I got myself there. And like, it's always an opportunity to learn and grow as well, which is great.
You bring up something important because I do think that there are reasons people want to take responsibility, as you first said when you shared first time, Sahajo, and there's reasons why people don't want to take responsibility. And at least for me, I'll own my own experience. When I first started exploring responsibility, I felt like the more responsibility I took on, the less freedom I would have. But that was a big conflict for me, and I've had to really like try to navigate that because it's been a long time for me to kind of work through that, because who doesn't want to be able to do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, but there comes a point where if you actually allow yourself to do that, or at least in my exploration, my experience, there was a point where I let myself kind of do more of that. I was kind of like, it was after everything kind of crumbled and I had worked my whole life for my career. I had, thought I was building all of these things, and kind of everything was destroyed in a certain way. And I just did, okay, whatever. Like, I'm just not going to work anymore. I don't care anymore. Like, what does it matter if I can do all of this and just have it taken away? Why do any of it? And I think I finally did experience there was a point where like I was just stagnant. Like I may be able to do whatever I want whenever I wanted, but like I almost didn't feel like I had the self-esteem to actually do anything I wanted. And I also realized that as much as I could do anything I wanted, nothing was happening. And in reality, like I finally had the realization of like, well, I might not be able to have everything in my life because I have this tendency to want everything. But if I do choose and I do commit and I do take on responsibility of building another company or building a family or building a relationship or having a baby, at least I'm building something. Like, at least I have something, versus, yeah, you could do whatever you want, but you have nothing. Like, you haven't built anything. So that came through all of this whole experience. And I do see experience much more the benefits of taking ownership or responsibility. And as well, I also went through a period of time where I think the other reason I didn't want to take responsibility or ownership was the blame piece. It was very scary to me that people could blame you for things that you didn't even do. And I had a tremendous amount of fear come up about that. After I had lost my job from the hospitals and I wasn't working anymore in medicine because of that, I started teaching aerobics again. And I remember I used to be a badass aerobics instructor, like music cranking, everybody moving, like it was awesome. And I went back to it and I was terrified. Like I remember being up on the stage and I would teach, but I wasn't the old me, and just so afraid that someone could make up a story and blame me for something. Somebody could, and they did, and I got fired from that job too. Um, but I feel like I've hit a point now where it's like, okay, I get people can choose to blame, and they will. Many people are still in that paradigm, I'm going to say, or still experience life that way. But if I allow the fear of punishment to control my life, again, I also I'm not taking responsibility for the fact that I'm letting the fear of punishment control my life, and I don't build, I don't grow, I don't overcome the fears. I kind of disappear myself, and that's really what I experienced. Is that in a lot of my meetings and a lot of my conversations and a lot of my I was there, but I wasn't there. I wasn't really there, and as I start to challenge or overcome the fear of being punished or the fear of being blamed, I can at least be an active participant again. I can at least be present and be there. And I guess there is a difference for me in my experience of disappearing myself or taking ownership and really being present and being an active participant. So I just wanted to share those two things because responsibility is really such a beautiful thing. And I've avoided it in so many areas. And I'm sure so many people do because they want their freedom to do whatever they want, or they don't want to be punished or blamed. And explore that, explore it to its bottom, maybe, so that you can explore finding yourself on the other side of it. But I think it's worth being blamed. I think it's worth losing some freedoms to have your existence, to have yourself.
Thanks, Danielle. That's so beautiful. And I think it's like just so how you can say that, and it's like and such a smile too. It's like, because just thinking about like when I think about ownership and responsibility, and it's like, oh yeah, what comes up is like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. You know what I mean? Like it sounds like complexity, a lot of work, just something like I don't want, and it's tied to maybe even building, anything, building wealth, building a business or something. And I guess we don't see the flip side of how that limits us if we just want it to be simple or low stress or stress free. I don't know. I don't think there's anything that's worth building that doesn't involve stress or, and struggle and hard work and effort, and all of that. So it's kind of, and then they're, totally relate, like, pick your, not your poison, but pick your pain, choose, what you want, like of a smaller, simpler life and not really having much effect in the world as much, or really having more impact, more, I don't know, more power, more control, whatever it is, more wealth, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But the more of, I think that they're directly correlated. You can't have that responsibility ownership without, also there's no way to dodge that. You're going to be blamed. People are going to like make up things and so forth. That, like, if we think we can control that, I thought I could by just being as good as possible and just walking the tight line and doing everything like I'm supposed to, like a good girl, good daughter, good sister, good, all of that. Guess what? Even if you do all those things, you still get blamed, and that's not my experience too. Like I walked the walk and talked that line, and I had close friends who have known me for decades, believe the news and media over my own personal experience, my own, family members, believing as well. And you'd think they know you and, and all of that really challenged. So, but I think, at the time it didn't really feel good. I'll tell you that. At the time it felt like the world's crumbling. But I think getting through to the other side and being able to really know more about me and who I am and what I stand for, and really being able to have the life I want, not the life that other people think I should have.
I love what you said because it's true. Whether you disappear yourself or you show up, people are going to blame you. Whether you're good, or you mess up, people are going to blame you. So you might as well at least go for what you want.
Hearing that song, like, it wasn't me. Like, that seems to me like the opposite of the, ownership, and like, it's like, it wasn't me. Or like that little voice that goes, yeah, but, when like something happens and it's like, yeah, but, yeah, but, yeah, but, I don't know. So I think it's like, either you do the, like, it wasn't me, yeah, but, or you go like, all right, how did I, like, what did I do to make this happen? Like, how could I have done it differently? Like, where's my potency? How did I, bring in there? And then saying more like, it was me. This is how I did it. This is what I did. Oh, I screwed up. I did that. Like, this was my failure. Yep. Okay. Can't do that next time. Learn that next time. It's like starting to also like just figure out, like you were saying, Linda, like, what are your boundaries? What are you able? What are you capable of? Like, what can you do? What can't you do? Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses?
And I agree wholeheartedly. And I wanted to add another aspect that we haven't touched on yet, which is that when I take responsibility or ownership for something, it does not mean other people bear no responsibility or do not bear any ownership. So if I have an argument with my partner and whatever it is, you didn't take out the garbage, and or anything even more serious, right? You did this or you didn't do that. And we have a big blowout about it. It could be true that he didn't do some task or he did do something or whatever. That is his responsibility, his choice to do his actions. However, he did his life such that he did or didn't do the thing. What taking responsibility and taking ownership means is to look at how I participated and how I'm responsible, not to pile on, I'm responsible for every, terrible thing. I'm responsible for the hurricane, on the other side of the country. That's not to say that you are God or the goddess responsible for everything. What it means is looking at how you are the driver, how you are, because, we didn't set up, say, the rules of physics, but we operate within them, whether we know it or not. So we are making choices. How are my choices impacting everything? And there's some quotes which I loved, and it speaks to what Angelica, you said very eloquently, that essentially says, like, every single thing in your life you're responsible for. You caused it all. Responsibility, it does add more capacity in your life, or what it doesn't really add capacity, but you perceive that you have more capacity, which is great. It ultimately lets you make more fruitful decisions, I believe. But it does not mean you're in charge of everything. It doesn't mean you're responsible for everything. But what you want to know is, what am I responsible for? And you want to find it all, because it makes you more potent.
I don't know that I'm enthusiastically there yet, but I'm working on it. Oh, I did that. I screwed that up. Here. I'm getting closer though. It is my potency.
I did that.
Oh, I did that. Okay, I'm gonna fix it.
I was just gonna say that I think that was something, I don't know if it actually happened or I just had it in my mind. I was like, imagine how cool it would be that you're in a classroom or with my children and be like, okay, guys, who did that? I did. It's like, it's so not,
Versus
so counterintuitive, but like, you did it. No, he did it. It was me. But I do think, just to add, I don't know, I think you guys have beautiful examples. And I just wanted to add that it's the experience. I feel like it's so hard to translate it and to like share the experience of a life with potency versus a life where, you're kind of like hiding and like dodging bullets, and for me, like, that was my life for a very long time, and it still is in some areas for sure, where I'm like, no, that wasn't me, like I wasn't part of that. But like, when I do get to the point, because I do have I don't know, like a commitment, I guess, to to really owning my life because I felt the difference. So when you actually say like, okay, let me sit with this and let me see, where am I participating? How am I participating? What can I change? And it could only be that, you know, it's just a realization of like, okay, this person is this way, this person is this way. How do I want to show up? You know, you're not going to be changing people. That's not what, because I thought about that too. You know, it's like, oh, maybe we can change others. No, doesn't work.
Take responsibility for
yeah,
all of them
Exactly.
too.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, or take responsibility for everybody. It's like, it's such a fine line and it's such a balance. And in life, things are like that, I've found. You know, it's like everything is just a balance. It's not like it's just your responsibility. You can't take responsibility for other people's emotions, for other people's actions, for other people's, that's not the way it works. But you can take responsibility of yourself, and really the feeling of potency that you create when you're like, I did this and I probably messed up, or I did it, okay. Like, but at the same time, it's like, it was me. So I can change it. That means I can do something about it. And that feeling to me is worth everything. And it took me a very long time to actually, you know, transfer from that blame, punishment, fear mode to like, okay, let's open up. And I do feel it like that. It's like an opening up to life and be like, okay, it is vulnerable. It doesn't feel good to me, at least, anyways. Not yet. Maybe someday, maybe it won't, but it does. It is a world of difference. So
Lines here, these wrinkles, that was me. I'm responsible for those. I caused those over many, many years of looking a certain way and being in the sun and like I've been wanting to like blame those on like age and other things, but no, I did that. And I probably can't change it unless I get Botox, but I can be okay with having them.
then you won't be able to, you know, you're gonna be stuck there.
Well, I think we have a theme song for this call, and I want to add the music in.
Okay, busy.
Oh, I heard that song yesterday and I was listening to it and I was like, I was angry. but I see now he's just disappearing himself and it's just worse, you know. So ladies, all those guys that cheated on you and they've denied their participation and they've denied it, they're really just living a life of low potency. You can find compassion.
Yeah, Danielle, you might want to work on that.
All right. Well, if you guys enjoy this, please like us. If you think somebody else might benefit, go ahead and share it. And if you do want more content like this, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We will see you guys in the next video with the next character trait of building a DOS woman.